Blog Talk Radio.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, across this great country. If it's Tuesday, it's Cleveland, Ohio. Move the Browns out, move the Cavaliers out. We're talking American sports history with my good friend, my mentor, my brother, Peter Ray. Yours truly, Mark Mancini, producing it. 347-205-9631 will get you to the forefront if you want to listen to it live. Archive version, blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports. And next week there's no shows in the network. They'll be all archived due to the Thanksgiving holiday. This show will reconvene December 1st, and that will be a good one too, as Peter brings another great guest on. Without further ado, let me lay the red carpet, put its podium in its place, give him the mic. Peter, first of all, how are you? Second of all, how can people get a hold of you? Third of all, you got a great guest tonight, my friend.
Hi, Mark. Good evening. I'm doing well. I have a YouTube channel. It's my name, Peter J. Ray, R-E-A. I have a website. It's called Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. I made 697 history videos in 7 areas: world history, American history, book reviews, poetic tours, Cleveland baseball, family history, and autobiography. And we've actually made 171 videos, Cleveland baseball videos, every year going back to 1869 through 2019, including the 20 Negro League seasons. Now, tonight we'd have a tremendous guest. He's from Chicago, Illinois, lives in Terre Haute, Indiana, or he did. I think he may have moved. He went to Fenger Academy High School. He's the founder and director and CEO of SDM Sports Network. He's also the host and creator of Snowman in the Morning, founder and director and CEO of Snowman Digital Media. Tonight's guest is the Snowman, Brian Snow. He's not available yet. We're waiting for him to come on. But in the meantime, since he's from Chicago, I thought we'd talk some Chicago sports history, because that's the title of the show, American Sports History. Of course, Chicago, if you look at baseball, they had the longest baseball title drought, which ended. And, of course, Cleveland played the noble opponent from 1908 to 2016, a 108-year title drought. And that itself is, all the years in between, of course, there's always happy memories for the fans. It's not just a matter of winning the World Series. And I was thinking, like, for example, in 69, when their title drought was 61 years. Actually, if you go back to the beginning, Tinkers to Evers to Chance, the famous double play combination from is still well known by those who love the game of baseball. 1908, long time ago. Anyway, I was thinking of, and actually after 1945 they weren't in the World Series, so went a long time until 2016, and then, of course, they did win. And in 69, you think of the Miracle Mets and everything, although it was another New York team winning. It seems like they've won so many, especially with the Yankees. But anyway, in 69, it looked like it was going to be the Cubs. And then they had Cubs were doing well. Leo DeRocher, the manager, and Ron Santo would click his heels after every win. And then late in the year, they went into a tailspin. Yeah, they had guys like Ernie Banks, and that's an interesting team because Leo DeRocher, who's a famous manager, well, he beat Cleveland in '54 with the New York Giants, and really was a mentor, really supported Willie Mays' career in New York. But, it's pretty tough. And then you go to the 84 Cubs, who had actually got picked up. Rick Sutcliffe from Cleveland got to the ALCS, I believe. And then back in 03, of course, I think they were up 3-2 in the NLCS. And, of course, the famous play in left field with Moises Alou and the fly ball. And this unfortunate fan, Steve Bartman, who interfered with the play, and you got to feel for the guy and all the. It's unfortunate when people are hard on each other. And anyway, they tracked down Moises Alou. He said, "Oh, I hope they I hope the Cubs win the World Series. Of course, they did in 2016, but that was another 13 more years. And then, of course, that's in baseball. Now, if you look at football, I think back to the '85 Bears, who were, that's 35 years ago. Boy, what a tremendous team! I think they only lost a game. Walter Payton, one of the greatest running backs of all time, and Jim McMahon, the real character quarterback, Mike Ditka, Iron Mike, that tough. Who's still? I don't know if he's still around. He was doing games in terms of analyzing and so forth. They'd interview him, or he was one of these commentators. And Refrigerator Perry, this huge guy. I remember they used to put it. He was like a lineman. They'd put him in sometimes to run the ball, and yeah, they just wiped out the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And I was in Washington D.C. a couple of years ago. Met a taxi driver from Chicago. I said, well, what happened to the Bears? Because it looked like they were going to have a dynasty for a long time, but they didn't. He said, they didn't want to pay the guys, so of course that is an important issue. And but anyway, like Lenny Wilkins said, when the Seattle SuperSonics won their only title in '79, before they eventually became, where'd they move to? I think they moved to Oklahoma City, and he said, the champagne wasn't flat before we started having problems after they won the title. You win a title, and well, you tend to guys either. It's always tough to maintain excellence. But anyway, the '85 Bears team certainly is one of the teams that'll never be forgotten. And if you get into basketball, the 6 titles in 8 years, Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan. It's easy to remember, 91, 2, 3, and then a couple of years off when Jordan played baseball, and then 6, 7, and 8. So those 6. And I thought to myself, I think that's the only time you had something like that happen, 6 titles in 8 years. But actually, if you go back, the Boston Celtics really dominated the NBA much more back in the. I don't have the records in front of me, but it might have been quite a few titles in a row, and quite a few, and maybe lost one, and something like 8 in a row, and again, I ought to have this information nailed down. But anyway, Chicago's had a interesting sports history. And it looks like he lived in Terre Haute, Indiana. That gets, it gets interesting. People move around, and then they develop different, loyalties. They have their original loyalty growing up, and maybe a loyalty based on their father or mother or an uncle or a grandfather. And then, of course, if you live in a place, you end up developing interest, and if you live in a new place long enough, you'll probably be a fan of the new team, like Mark Mancini in San Diego. He's a Padres fan, and also Pittsburgh and a San Diego fan. So that's pretty interesting, And I was looking at my map of the United States in Terre Haute, Indiana. I hope I pronounced that right. Looks like it's fairly equidistant to probably Cincinnati, St. Louis, and Chicago. A little further with Chicago. So you wonder, this fellow Brian Snow, if he's become a Reds fan or a St. Louis fan, a Cardinals fan. So it's it's interesting as people move around. I was on an airplane one time. I met these couple Chinese ladies and living in Kansas City, and I said, "Oh, you guys must be Royals fans." They go, "Oh no, we're Yankees fans." And I thought, "No, come on, you're rooting for the." They got too much curse. I don't know. Yeah, I think they were Chinese, but maybe Japanese curse with they had Hideki Matsui, getting the Asian market. I was actually at a game in Cleveland with there were some Japanese fans sitting behind us, and I think they were there. Cleveland was playing Seattle, and I think it was because of that guy with one name. Here, I can't even think of his name right, and everybody knows the guy played right field. Ichiro, right? He put his hand on his front shoulder of his jersey to before every pitch, his mannerism. But anyway, that's why it was it was cool when they had Lin Sanity in with the Knicks. Stephen Lin, was that his name? Chinese guy, and then all of a sudden, everyone's crazy. And I thought that you ended up getting support from teams from China, right, or whatever. So I think it's good, especially nowadays. Sports is international with cable TV. You got fans all over the world. Especially the NBA has become very popular internationally, and so it's now of course the NBA is really international in terms of players because it's become so popular in Europe, and even you had guys with the Spurs, who was the guy from Argentina. And these names don't actually rattle off my. Oh, the guy from Tony Parker. He was in Paris, France. So that's pretty interesting. You know, as time goes by, the loyalties as you move into different places. Actually, I lived in the Philippines for 20 years, but of course that didn't change my loyalty at all because you know they don't have any American pro teams there. But I was in Kansas City for a year, not Kansas, Topeka, Kansas for a year, and that's in the area of the Kansas City Royals. And actually, I went to a couple games. I ended up going to a couple games, and I remember George Brett went 4 for 4. This is 1985, and I remember after the fourth hit, I jumped up out of my seat and cheered, and I was like, oh wow, and I felt a little bit guilty, but yeah, I was. And actually, I moved back to Cleveland near maybe September. But when the Royals won the World Series that year, I was happy about it. So I had developed a certain amount of affinity for that team. My older brother moved to Boston and he grew up in Cleveland. He became a big Boston fan, the Celtics, the Patriots, the Red Sox. He was really into the '86 Red Sox especially. And then he moved to L.A., and so he was a big Lakers fan. So he's one of these guys who's done that. I have a friend whose brother moved to Pittsburgh. We have this huge rivalry in the NFL between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and of course he's been there 20 years, so he's still a Browns fan, but a Steelers fan. It's a lot more fun being a Steelers fan because what a tremendous organization, and really you got to give credit to the Rooney family and for being good people and a good family. I think that's my theory on how teams are able to succeed over time. Which is hard to do, and what the Steelers have kept up over the years is just really since the '70s. You're talking 50 years now. And it's really they've been owned by one team. Art Rooney, the original guy, and now I think his son not sure if he died, but anyway, it stayed in the family. They're just good people, and that's what it's all about. My opinion, if you're a good person, then you'll, do what's right, and, you'll hire good people and be patient and have humility and so forth, and then have good, team morale. Otherwise, sometimes what seems to kill teams is, political infighting, power struggles, especially in the front office. Then people get demoralized, and the team is losing. And then, especially in Cleveland, we've had that problem of firing coaches, frequently, which means constant turnover. And then Cleveland is the Cleveland Browns are a good example of how you don't run a team because they just have been really lousy. Although this year we're 6-3, so that's great. We're still waiting on Brian Snow. Hope he can make time in his busy schedule. Otherwise, I'll just keep shooting the breeze with you, dear listener. Whichever team you have, I wish you well. I don't have any. I do tend to be. I don't hate the Yankees, but they're the two teams I probably. I was, to be honest, I was not happy that the Lakers won the NBA Finals, especially with LeBron James, because it hurt. I have to tell you, it hurt. You left twice, and here they've won too many. They've already won too many titles. The NBA is like the worst sport for fans because you have these two teams. The Lakers and Celtics have won a huge number of titles, and so I really couldn't hate the Warriors, even though they beat us 3 years out of 4 in the finals. Because actually, that's aside from those 3 titles, they have one more, I think, in '75 with Rick Barry, and that's it. And then you have teams like the Celtics and Lakers with their 16, 17, something like that. And there's a big drop off after those two, because the next I think is the Bulls, and then after that is I think the Spurs maybe. Spurs, really. San Antonio Spurs have done a good job over the years of maintaining greatness. And it's interesting in the NFL now with Tom Brady. I'm not keeping real good track of it, but he's apparently doing well with with Tampa, and the Patriots aren't doing well. So I still find that strange that they let Brady go. But human relations, passage of time, and there's always people get sick of each other, and even regardless of how much success you have, and there's always problems in human relations. The longer That's like in my church, there's, we're taught that, the only thing that keeps a relationship for a long time, permanently really is if both people have a strong spiritual life. Then you can forgive each other and be patient and really be giving, and care about each other, not just use each other and so forth. But anyway, so when it comes to the different teams, now baseball actually has been doing pretty well, real well in terms of sort of spreading the titles around instead of being hogged by a few like Lakers and Celtics. Although to be honest, the Celtics have only since '86 they won in '08. Yeah, they beat Cleveland in the play. We gave them a good series. I think it was the East semifinal, something like that, when LeBron was a young fella. During his years when he was getting frustrated with not winning titles with Cleveland, leading him to finally leave. But anyway, in baseball, you had a lot of title droughts came to an end. The Phillies in '80, that's going back 40 years. But in the 2000s, you had the Red Sox. That was tremendous. In '04 maybe. I had to do a better job with these years. But the White Sox, White Sox in '05 and let's see. Well, obviously the Cubs and the Astros. I'm not one of these guys jumping on the Astros cheated and all this stuff. I thought, come on, people. It's their only title in baseball, and they haven't. Well, Houston has a couple NBA titles, and then in football, I think the Oilers won a title in the AFL, but they haven't had. So give them credit. I don't know why people have to be so hard on each other, but to be honest, I think what it really boils down to is you want to win a championship every year in every sport with your teams, and people are frustrated. The time passes. In my life, I've been a fan of Cleveland sports since '73 when I was 13, so now it's 47 years later, and we did win in '16 with the Cavs, so that was a big deal, and especially I remember my dad. Before my father died, I was very close to my father. He was a very good man, and we watched games together. We went to a fair amount of Cleveland Indians games in the mid '70s, and watched Browns games on TV and Cavs and stuff like that, and father-son thing. And then I always wanted to see Cleveland win a title during his lifetime, and it never happened. But and I thought, he died in 2011. I thought, gosh, I can't have that experience. But then when they did win, I thought of my father. And I think when people die, they still, I think they can see us if we think of them, So I still had a sense of a father-son experience thinking about my father and Cleveland winning a championship. But anyway, so if you look at, so that to me, I'm always glad, when teams end long title droughts. I'm rooting for the Buffalo Bills because that was very, very tough. That's, I think, the toughest thing, losing 4 Super Bowls in a row. I'm rooting for the Minnesota Vikings. I think they're 0-4 in the Super Bowl. Any of the teams that haven't won a championship. That's why it was good that Kansas City Chiefs won last year. They actually did win, I think, Super Bowl III. I think that's right. Hank Stram, was he the coach? Oh, we have our guest is ready. Welcome to the show, the snowman, Brian Snow.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I've been doing interviews most of the afternoon, and my brain hurts. And one quick correction, that was Super Bowl IV that the Chiefs won over the Vikings, 23-7.
Okay. So, Brian, what teams did you support when you were growing up?
I still support the San Francisco 49ers. I've been a 49er fan since '81, and Joe Montana is the reason. Okay. I have a second team that I support now, thanks to my wife and my pretty little girl, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. I married a Hoosier. She's a Colts fan. And, I've been a fan of the Colts for a while. So those are the two teams I support.
So that was the 49ers. So you got 2 NFL teams. How about baseball?
First team I loved was Whitey Herzog and the St. Louis Cardinals. The team I currently love right now I'm a Chicagoan, and I'm a South Sider, so I'm all Chicago White Sox.
Chicago White Sox. So they won in 05, right?
Yes, they did.
So
one
that
of
was
the happiest days of my life.
Who were your favorite White Sox players growing up?
Let's see, Greg Luzinski, the Bull, Ron Kittle, left fielder, Harold Baines. Two of my favorite pitchers were on that team, Lamar Hoyt and Richard Dodson. Through the years, I also grew up to love, this Hall of Famer by the name of Frank Thomas.
So the 84, what year was that the White Sox make it to they had made a run? Was that 84?
83 with the winning ugly team. They won the
83.
West.
Right.
They won the American League West. And then they won it again in 1993, and I was at the game where they clinched against Seattle. Mm-hmm. And boy, that place was loud.
So the going back to the 49ers, you're talking about Joe Montana era?
Yes. Montana,
they were really something.
Yeah, they were. That's the team that got me hooked.
We had and of course you remember the catch with Dwight Clark.
That's the play that got me hooked on the 49ers, because my teacher at the time was a Cowboy fan, and she was talking a lot of mess, and I was the only one in my class bold enough to say San Francisco will beat Dallas. Yeah, earned the class a reward full of cupcakes for that.
Okay. Yeah, Dwight Clark became the Cleveland Browns GM, and they kept showing they showed many times that the catch. So we were all like, "Wow, that was became part of Cleveland sports since he was our GM." And very sad. I think he died of Lou Gehrig's disease.
He did.
Yeah, terrible.
It's so sad to not have him here. I miss Dwight Clark.
Now you had would you say Jerry Rice is the greatest wide receiver of all time?
Yep. There is no question. I don't care who has how many ever catches getting toward him. The only receiver I would put on the only two receivers, I beg your pardon, that I would put on Jerry Rice's level, Randy Moss and Larry Fitzgerald. Yeah,
of course, I go back to guys like Lynn Swann and his other fellow with the Steelers, other guys like that. John Stallworth, right, there you go. But because that's the 70s was my era. Now with the Colts, we're talking about Peyton Manning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're a Peyton Manning. And they won the Super Bowl, what year was that when the Colts won with Peyton Manning?
2006.
And so that was a big deal for you.
Yep. They beat, and oddly enough, they beat the Bears to win the Super Bowl.
Did you remember the '85 Bears, right?
I do.
Were you into that team?
To be honest, a lot of me wasn't. Because I kind of knew not to. All right, I'm going to say this honestly, and people are going to think I'm crazy. I kind of knew early on they'd be a flash in the pan.
Oh.
When they won the Super Bowl in 1985, having all those dominant defensive players, they didn't improve. They won division titles, yes, but they didn't get defensively stronger than the New York Giants. They didn't develop a better running game than the Washington Redskins. They didn't develop a more diverse offense than the 49ers. They didn't improve. They just figured, we got our Super Bowl, the curse is over, we can live with these guys for the next 10 years. And the only thing I take from that Bears team is the fact that they have the same offensive line for a decade. They didn't miss a start for a decade.
Yeah, that's one of the strange things. They were the dynasty that wasn't.
Exactly. If they'd have improved, if they'd have stayed younger, everyone wants to say, if McMahon hadn't gotten injured, I don't buy it. It's football. You're going to get injured. they didn't have a viable backup. They didn't have a viable backup. As good as Steve Fuller was, he wasn't a viable backup. He just couldn't get the job done. Anybody who remembers Steve Fuller, who backed up Jim McMahon for part of the 80s, he couldn't get the job done when the NFC Championship was on the line in San Francisco in 1984. That should have been your clue.
Well, what about Mike Ditka?
Love him as a coach. He was just handcuffed by the organization.
Now, would you like to talk about Snowman in the Morning?
Snowman in the Morning is a 5-day-a-week program that runs from 8 to 12 on Snowman Digital Media and the SDM Sports Network, and I got a few other networks that want to air the show also. So it's starting to grow.
And do you just talk about current sports, the various sports today, what's going on?
A little bit of everything. Talk about a little bit of everything in the world of sports. I mix in some things about life as well. I always talk about my family because they're the biggest reason I do this. In particular, my wife. Right. The biggest reason I do it.
I was going to ask you about go back to the '83 White Sox with Bill Veeck was the owner. Is that right?
Yes.
And see that ties in with Cleveland because now we had him he won actually his only title in '48 with Cleveland, and of course he's never forgotten. And so that was you guys had that was fun having Bill Veeck there, and you can remember how his impact on the team.
Indeed, Bill Veeck had a huge impact not just on the team but on the city of Chicago. Because he helped out both the Cubs and the White Sox, but he was more with the White Sox than the Cubs. He had a solid impact on how to market a baseball team, how to get fans to come out, and how to put a good product on the field.
How about Disco Demolition Night?
I heard the story. I saw the story. And that was I think that was the last straw for Beck. Because, as I said, with the Bears, he got tired of being handcuffed by the organization. But there was a little bit of reining in that had to be done also.
And then they had the short pants for a few games.
Yep, they did. They had the short pants. They had the
People
short
remember
pants.
that. Oh, and Minnie Minoso, Minnie Minoso, I think, played in age late 50s, got a hit.
Yeah, he did. He did.
I like those uniforms with the with the collars. Those were unique.
The butterfly collar.
And you guys, I think there's a card, maybe a baseball card, Jack Brohammer, who played for Cleveland with the wearing the short, batting with the short pants.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Ron. Yeah, I remember watching I think an Indians White Sox game in Chicago, and they started singing that "Sha na 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 hey," and it was like, oh my God, I was like, wow, listen, look, I was like, I thought this is really something. These fans are really, really energized.
Yeah, that became and still is the home run song for the White Sox. I mean, it was an obscure. And thank organist Nancy Faust for that. It was an obscure song, but she and the organization found a way to make it into a staple.
Yeah, I really loved hearing. To me it was cool. It's kind of like with the Red Sox, and they have that Sweet Caroline, when they sing. I think they sing the seventh inning. It's like, oh, that's so cool. Here in Cleveland, they have. When they win a game, they play Cleveland Rocks, which I find a very dull song. And so I think it's cool, when teams do stuff like that.
I will say this: there are two radio play-by-play guys one of which retired some time back, that I enjoyed listening to. Joe Tate, the longtime voice of the Cavaliers, I love listening to him. And also Tom Hamilton, current voice of the Cleveland Indians.
How about Ken Hawk Harrelson with the White Sox?
He was funny. You could tell who he was rooting for, number one. And number two, he didn't hold anything back when it came to how the game should be played, from the players to the umpires, the owners, everything. He let you know how he felt, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, we had him in Cleveland as a player, and they put Hawk on instead of his last name on the uniform, and I thought that was so cool. And we picked him. I think we got him in a trade, and he was, this super cool guy at the time. And then late, I kind of lost track of him, but then I read his book. He has a book that came out in recent years. We are out of time. Our guest has been Brian Snow, host and creator of Snowman in the Morning. Mr. Snow, do you have any final words for our audience?
The inbound pass comes into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. A shot on Elo. Good.
Oh, that hurts. It still hurts after how many years? Oh, we didn't get into
as called by the late great Jim Durham.
The shot. Even though they didn't win that year, but you could say the shot that launched a career. Thank you so much, Mr. Snow, for being on the show tonight. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I truly appreciate it.
God bless you. Dear listener, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Good night, everybody. Thanks again, Mr. Snow.